Hey there, nerds. Welcome to another episode of Two Nerdy Dads. And if I may say so, we'll call this the holiday special, Star Wars.
Oh, there you go.
Not Life Day, but rather Jason and I are going to celebrate. What are we celebrating, Jason?
Oh, I don't know. There was some big movie that came out this last weekend that we've been waiting, really, honestly, decades for, if you really think about it. But certainly, you know, since the prequels, for sure.
10 years since the last one.
Yeah. So, you know, a little movie called Star Wars: The Force Awakens. So if you have not seen this, bookmark it.
Yeah.
And because we are spoiling everything. Nothing is off limits here. So you need to, first of all, what are you thinking? Like, you should have seen it by now, but maybe you couldn't get seats. But definitely come back and watch this after you have seen it, and then let us know what you guys think, because I've heard all kinds of different opinions.
I think that's the strangest thing with this movie coming out. And I guess, well, Facebook wasn't really around. I'm learning that I have friends that have never seen any Star Wars movies. And it's really shocking to me.
Yeah. It's like, go sit in the car. Like, where have you been? How is this possible? Like, I kind of understand, like, when my students haven't seen it, like, I kind of get that, because it's like, you know, they missed it. I mean, even some of my kids, like, the prequels came out like when they were just little ones. And so I kind of understand that. And, you know, they're like the Harry Potter generation, like, that's their Star Wars. So I get that. That's fine. But some of our friends that are our age have not seen any of them.
Yeah.
Any of them. My sister-in-law had never seen the movies until she watched them with her kids. She's married to my brother, and I've mentioned how big of a fan that he is. I mean, he has a life-size Yoda. You know, he has all kinds of Star Wars stuff, loves Star Wars, and she had never even, and I said, how does this marriage work? I don't get it.
What? How did that go? How did they meet? I don't understand.
That should have been on the, like, that's like first date questionnaire material there that, I don't know.
Are you nice? Are you a good person? Have you seen Star Wars?
Right. Exactly. I don't get it. So there you have it. Whereas I knew that I had the one when our first date, Megan and I, when we first started dating, was The Phantom Menace. So the fact that she was willing to watch that movie with me for our first date was, you know, that was huge, tremendous points. Now, when she giggled when Qui-Gon got stabbed, it was a little bit, it was a little bit of like, okay, all right. Yeah. But in hindsight, it was completely, you know, legitimate and a window totally into, you know, that she knew what she was doing and talking about. And yeah, she's a good person. But let's get into the movie, man. Like, you start. You're the big Star Wars fan. I mean, we both are, but you're the one with framed pictures behind you. So you tell me what you think, and you know I'm gonna chime in because I'm psyched about this.
Well, let me start with, I saw it last Tuesday, and it was the toughest thing in the world, because we get press releases all the time, press screenings, come see the movie. This one I'd been waiting for, let's see, Nerdlocker, 5 years, because Nerdlocker's 5 years old. So I've been waiting. We didn't get anything. I'm like, oh, this is going to be the movie where we don't have a press screening. It figures. So 2 Fridays ago, the week before the movie came out, Thursday, the week before the movie came out, we got an invite. And it was top secret. You cannot tell anybody this is happening. We will reveal the location the Monday before the screening. You don't get any guests. Reply now. First come, first serve. I was like, oh, right away. Oh, yeah, I'll be there. So the Tuesday, she's like, by 1 o'clock, we'll let you know. And I'm just looking at the clock, waiting.
Checking
I got to know where this is. I'm so excited. Find out the location. And I can't tell anybody. I told Allison. That was it, my wife. That was it. And she was mad at me because she's a huge Star Wars fan too. And she wasn't going to get to go. So she was mad at me, but she understood. So Tuesday comes. I have the location. I'm uber nervous because I'm like, oh, my God, I don't know how this is going to work. Usually press screenings, they tie it in with some kind of radio giveaway or something so that It's a pretty packed theater, but I didn't feel like that was going to be the case this time because it was like top secret. So I get to the theater. There were 10 people in the theater.
Wow.
All reviewers, critics.
Wow.
And I'm like, wow, this is great. Cool. And as I said in my review, it hit me that yes, I'm sure there were other fans of Star Wars, and I know there were 2 other people who were nerds like me, but for the most part, we're in a theater of critics.
Mm-hmm.
And it hit me when this woman started talking about the relationship between Han and Chewbacca, and why are they so close? Why are they have been so together so long? And even to the point where are they an interspecies couple? And I'd had it. I'm like, okay, woman, here comes my inner nerd. And I politely turned around and said, well, would you like to hear the truth? Why they are together? And she was gracious enough. Well, sure, okay. I told her all about Chewbacca being a slave and Han freeing him from the Empire. Chewie owed him a life debt. They stayed together, became great friends, pilot, co-pilot. So great relationship. But it was at that moment where I'm like, oh my God, as they're all staring at me, oh my God, I am like the fanboy in this group of movie, see if it's good or not. I'm like, no, I'm here because this is my life. This is amazing. So that was weird. But saw the movie. I honestly, when I first saw it, I enjoyed it. I, of course, loved when the credits come on and the scroll comes down to explain. Actually goes this way, explain everything. Get the hairs on the back of my neck, goosebumps, just awesome. But overall, I was like, man, I don't understand this movie. Because how did we get from Return of the Jedi to The Force Awakens? What happened to the Empire? Mm-hmm. Why is there a resistance? What is the New Republic doing that there would have to be a resistance? Because in my mind, well, the resistance must not agree with the New Republic, so the resistance is off doing something else. I just didn't understand. Where the hell are the Sith? Why are they gone? What are the Knights of Ren? Just a lot of questions I didn't understand. So I think that kind of took away from some of my enjoyment. But I saw it again. I saw it on Thursday as part of my son's birthday. It was myself, my son, and 4 of his friends and their fathers. It was actually pretty cool. I was a little nervous because, again, I don't know who's seen Star Wars and what they know about Star Wars. But when again, this time I saw it in 3D IMAX, which was pretty awesome. And pretty much all my questions were answered. And I was embarrassed to read the opening scroll again and realize they totally answered the Empire question right in the beginning. And I was like, wow, can't believe I missed that. That was dumb. But a lot of my questions were answered. And I think it had to do with I was able to do some research without having to worry about spoilers because I'd seen it. Right. So if you spoil something, no big deal. I've seen it. I need answers, whatever. But between Tuesday and Thursday night, that was probably the hardest, most difficult time of my life because I knew what had happened. And so for people like you, Jason, I had good friends who were asking, hey, how was it? And I'm like, I can't tell you because if I come out and like, dude, it was awesome. You're super excited. If I come out and say, yeah, you'd be disappointed. So tons of people were asking me. It was the most difficult question I've been asked ever, I think. And I had to write a review for that Wednesday. And it was just very, very hard to write a review without giving anything away and without spoiling, not necessarily spoiling the movie, but spoiling the experience for anybody. And Allison proofread it for me to make sure I didn't have any spoilers, which kind of upset her again because then she had to get the excitement, but she wasn't going to be able to see it. And one of the things I had in the first line was, the universe would be better off without the Skywalkers. And she's like, that's a spoiler. And I'm like, how's that a spoiler? We all know that Darth Vader brought some, bad events, and then Luke kind of fixed it, and then, we don't really know where he is. She's like, well, clearly there's another Skywalker in this movie. I'm like, how do you know that? She's like, because you just alluded to it's still going bad. And I'm like, oh, shoot. Spoiled it. But lucky again, I got to see it Sunday night for a third time.
Wow.
And it's just unbelievable. Unbelievable movie. It gets better every time. The more I see it, I come back to the internet and find why people don't like it. So I can go back and analyze that in the movie, find that specific reason and try and find the answers. And I just find more answers. I'm like, no, their argument doesn't hold water. They need to see it again because it's just, it's a phenomenal movie. Phenomenal. After that long answer, what'd you think?
Well, my experience, I got to see it Thursday as well. I took my kids, and then my brother James went, and he took his 2 sons. And it was a fun experience. We were at the front of the line. They had some, people in costume there, Darth Vader and stuff like that. So that was a lot of fun. And then we all enjoyed it. We thought it was fantastic. I was sort of more excited for my kids, and I'm sure you were that way the second time, for my kids to be seeing it for the first time on the big screen. That was where I was more excited about that. And I think I was with you, like when the letters started scrolling, I didn't really pay close attention to them either, because I think what I was doing was I was so caught up in the moment of seeing them scroll, and then sort of like peripherally looking over at the kids and watching them watch it for the first time, that I wasn't really reading it to try to figure out, well, what's the story of this and how is it progressing? The 2 words that I tweeted out about it as a non-spoiler 2-word review was satisfyingly predictable. I felt like there were these sort of twists in the plot and so forth that were not surprising. They were very predictable twists, but they were satisfying. They were, when they happened, you were like, yeah, that's how the story should go. That's exactly how this should be progressing. That's what we expect from a Star Wars film. So the first of which, obviously being that Kylo Ren is Han Solo and Leia's son. Not surprising at all. And so when they have that review, someone audibly went, and I don't know if they were just goofing around or something, but they audibly went, "What?" So they might have just been that into it and were actually that shocked. But I wasn't. I was like, yep, and so some people might have thought, oh, that's so predictable. But for me, I was like, that's makes sense, and it's very Star Wars. That it's a fitting one. When he takes off the mask and he's a very handsome man, loved it because of the irony, obviously, of Darth Vader wearing the mask because of he's all scarred up. And so when Kylo Ren removes it and he's a very handsome young man, it was amusing to me. I was like, that's kind of cool. That's kind of fun. My favorite part, though, had to be when they reveal the Millennium Falcon, when it was on the desert planet and they pull off the tarp. I cheered, like audibly cheered and applauded at that moment, because it was so fun. Like, and that was the best. Like, this movie was a fun movie, like the other Star Wars were. It didn't get caught up in trying to make a political statement. Now, it kind of does make some statements. There's some thematic value to the storyline, but it wasn't like the prequels felt like Lucas was forcing that, like he was trying too hard to make some political commentary or something with it. And I felt like it really detracted from the storytelling about these very likable, what should be likable characters. And so when you take these characters that everybody grew up with and loved, I mean, Han Solo steals the film. I mean, from the moment he enters into it, he owns the screen, and he's just incredibly enjoyable to watch. Harrison Ford is just right back into his comfort zone, and I wouldn't be surprised to find out that he enjoyed playing Han more so in this film maybe than any of the other 3. It'd be interesting to find that out from him. But I loved Finn. I thought he was fantastic. Very likable character. Having this moral compass, and that makes him likable from the start. I loved that my prediction about him being a rogue stormtrooper came to pass. That was actually what was going on. I loved his humor. The way that he talked to people, and the way that he was hiding who he was and stuff. Loved Rey, thought she was great. I've seen some criticism where actually one of my students, she made a good point. You're talking about an 8th grader here who said to me, "You have to be more than a strong woman for me to be a fan of you as a character." And I was like, well, all right. But I talked to her about it and I thought, well, she is more than that. There is more to her than that. She's just a strong character, which she is. And I thought that was admirable because it was in the vein of Princess Leia, who has always been a strong character, even though she's the one who's rescued from the castle in that typical myth storyline. As a princess, she's pretty, outspoken. She has her own agency. Like, she speaks her mind and in a lot of ways rescues herself. She takes that blaster and fires it. And
she wasn't kidnapped. She was captured because she was going against the Empire.
Right, exactly. Standing up to them. Exactly. So already that was a mold that had been, broken and challenged, I think, by Princess Leia. And of course she has her moments where it's pretty stereotypical, but that's Hollywood anyway. But I thought it followed suit with that, and I loved that she was the Jedi. Loved that love when she does the Jedi mind trick and she, at first it doesn't work and then it does. That's just amusing.
Did you catch who that stormtrooper was?
No.
I caught it, I guess after the second time I saw it, so the third time I watched. It's Daniel Craig. He was filming
James
Bond. It's James Bond on the Pinewood Studios at the same time, and I don't know what happened, but he came over.
That's fantastic.
Next time you go and watch it, listen, you can kind of hear it, but as he walks out,
I could recognize the voice.
He walks like him.
That must be it, because I could recognize the voice. I was like, that voice sounds familiar. What is that? Who is that? But I've only seen it the one time. And then I couldn't figure out which alien was what's his face? From Star Trek and the Mission Impossible. Say it again.
Simon Pegg?
Yes, Simon Pegg.
He's the guy in the beginning who's trading the junk for the food rations.
Oh, so he's that guy. That's what I thought. I wasn't sure if it was him or he was the big huge, because I knew it was like a big bulky alien guy. So but anyway, I loved the characters, and of course you love Chewie, you love Han, those guys. But I thought even the new characters, Poe, I was kind of like, whatever. He was sort of, he was likable. And it'll be interesting to see where they go with his character. So it was fun to see that's where Abrams took it back to, is it's still a plot-driven film because the storyline's that way, but it has characters that you root for. And that was always my biggest criticism of the prequels, and I think that recapturing that was key, and it was just fun. It just was a fun movie. Han Solo's death, perfect. That's exactly what needed to happen. I remember Harrison Ford saying that he wanted Han Solo to die in Return of the Jedi.
Mm-hmm.
And thought that was a fitting end for his character. But I think it was great that he didn't, because we love Han Solo. But now that we're into this, there's nowhere else for him to go, as a character. And so he, like I said, he stole the show and became, when he comes on screen, he sort of owns it. And then when he finally is killed by his own son, again, it wasn't a surprise. It was completely predictable, but rewarding. That's what should happen. It shows that he has, become that he's a good father, that he made whatever mistakes he made for Kylo to be down the road that he's down now, he tried to make amends, and he reached out and wanted to do right by his son. And that's what mattered to him. And then when Kylo Ren, kills him, it's that moment where you're just like, okay. And Kylo Ren is interesting as a villain because he throws these temper tantrums. Those temper tantrums that he throws are different from even from Anakin from the prequels, who kind of, loses control of his anger. They weren't as much temper tantrums like Ren was. And so I don't know whether, I think I'll have to watch that again and see what I think about that because there are moments when like you're like, whoa, this dude's pretty awesome. Like when he in that first scene when he stops that laser beam, like never seen that before. This guy's pretty awesome. But then one of our buddies, Kyle, who's been on here, one of his most legitimate...
He will never be on here again. I'm sorry.
His most legitimate complaints, and he had several, which we can kind of address a little bit at a time, but was that how could this fully trained Sith be be beaten by an untrained raw Jedi?
All right, answer. Here we go. Ready?
Okay, all right. Go for it.
He's not fully trained.
Okay.
Snoke says, bring him back so we can finish your training.
Mm-hmm.
That's what's awesome about the temper tantrums is that he's not fully trained. And I love it because we're seeing somebody who the Sith are obviously wiped out. Snoke, we don't know who he is or what he is. So essentially, we're kind of seeing somebody who's been trained to some extent, but he's really on his own. So even though Anakin was going to the dark side, he was fully trained all the way up until turning to Darth Vader, and then the Emperor still trained him. Kylo Ren really hasn't been trained. He was trained a little bit in the Jedi Academy. We can infer, because that's where he was when he turned. And we know he's still young, so he clearly hasn't had the total training for being a Knights of Ren, and he's on his own. So to me, throwing the hissy fits, I'm like, that is awesome. He's reaching into the dark side. He has zero control, and he's just throwing a hissy fit. Awesome. As far as how he was defeated, he was able to freeze Poe in the beginning and take control. He still had that power when he was able to freeze Rey when they first met. But the moment he took her for interrogation, this is my theory, up until that point, it was all dark side. We do not have balance of the Force, which is the whole story of this new trilogy, and honestly all the other movies, bringing balance to the Force. So far, it's all dark side. That's all we have. Ren brought Rey on board to interrogate her. He was reading her mind, and then like flip the switch sort of thing. You can kind of see it as the scene's going on, and then she starts reading his mind, and that's when he says, or she says, you're afraid you won't live up to Vader. You won't be as powerful as Vader. And you can kind of see him take a look back. You can kind of see his face fall in disappointment, like, oh my, she's read my mind. So at that point, not only do we have another person gaining power in the Force, but we also have his doubt in the Force becoming increased. So we have a little more balance. Then, and this is the thing that kills me when people say that, well, how could somebody defeat Kylo Ren? He's trained. Throughout the whole movie, they're showing how awesome Chewie's bowcaster is. I mean,
they do that.
Stormtroopers, they go flying backwards. Well, when Han got killed, Chewie nailed him with a bowcaster right in the midsection. So now he's wounded. Like, he's got to be severely wounded because he took that bowcaster right in the midsection.
Yeah, that was my argument. Yeah.
Exactly. So he fought Finn and defeated Finn, so he's already... He got hit by Finn in the shoulder, so he's already a little damaged there. Then, my favorite scene in the whole movie, he goes to reach for the lightsaber that is Luke's old lightsaber, and thus his grandfather's old lightsaber, and he goes flying past Kylo and lands in Rey's hands. And the music that's going on, I believe, is the same music when Luke is looking out on Tatooine as the suns are setting, and it's just perfect. So she's got the lightsaber now. So she's obviously more power in the Force than she was. We're having more balance in the Force, so good side's coming up, dark side's going down a little bit. He's already wounded from a bowcaster. He's wounded from Finn taking a little chunk out of him with the lightsaber. I don't see it that difficult of why he's being defeated. So that's my argument back to Kyle.
I hadn't thought about the balance of the Force thing, which is really interesting. And I guess you're right. You're just so overwhelmed by the fact that he can stop that beam mid-fire, which was so, and then he walks away for quite some time, and then it finally fires, that it seemed to set the precedent of like, dude, this guy is awesome.
Mm-hmm.
and his power is awesome. But I hadn't thought about the idea that, yeah, but nobody else is using the Force, so maybe he's able to tap into it in a raw kind of way that nobody else really could do. But I kind of see where people were formulating that argument. Mine was what you said. I mean, he did just get shot like in the liver or something, like somewhere with that bowcaster, and I liked how he kept pounding himself in the injury, like to fire himself up to get that adrenaline rolling. I just thought that was kind of fun. I also thought that his lightsaber seemed raw too, with the way that he made it. It seemed he wasn't as elegant with it. It's basically it's a Claiborne. It's all about hacking away. And so I thought that was kind of an interesting addition too, that maybe, his lightsaber wasn't quite as sophisticated and not made as well because he, doesn't have anybody, or he, maybe that's, reflecting his own sort of inability to have control of the Force, which is really what it's about, right? Is controlling it. Even with the dark side, it's being able to focus that anger and that emotion, and he doesn't do that. The other thing I thought was interesting was Han and Leia as bad parents.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that's a really interesting storyline, that they must have been bad parents in some sort of way. Is Kylo Ren sort of a product of their bad parenting? Did they have a falling out? Are they like a separated or divorced, family? And that was part of the reason why Ren might have this anger. Did they push him off on Luke? The whole like boarding school kind of a, rebelliousness, like, it's going to be interesting to see how far, if at all, they go with that, or if they just leave it up to the audience to sort of interpret it. But I thought it was kind of interesting and unique. So for me, it was all about the characters.
Yeah, I never thought of it that way, because I guess I kind of looked at it as, well, Shmi Walker was not a bad person, and Shmi Skywalker, I'm sorry, was not a bad person when she sent Anakin with Obi-Wan and Qui-Gon Jinn. She was actually sending him off to a better life,
right?
But it was just his manipulation because of Darth Sidious and sort of the Jedi's thinking they were omnipotent, omniscient, thinking they were all that, and not realizing right beneath them was a Sith Lord. They thought they wiped him out, but there he was, manipulating everything. And this is where the books did far better job. I don't know how they do that, because usually a movie is based off of a book, but in this case, the books are based off of the movies, yet the books gave way more information than the movies did, and I find that odd. But they gave more information about Darth Sidious turning Anakin and making Anakin think that it was the Jedi that caused him all this pain, that it was the Jedi that were hurting Padme, and that he really needed to take out the Jedi because they were bad. So I don't know, I never thought of that as bad parenting by Shmi. But at the same time, you're right. She was the one that let him go, so there was no parent there. And in this case, I felt that it was Han and Leia letting Ben go train with Luke at the Jedi Academy. So now there was no parent. It was him with other Jedi, sort of like you said, a boarding school. And I felt like they split up Han and Leia, that they split up after Ben became Kylo. And there was the reference to, well, we both went back to what we were good at, obviously her being a general and him being a smuggler, which was cool.
Yeah, I think that might be the better interpretation of what went down. And I think the difference between Shmi, the mom of Anakin's mom, was what you said. Like, I mean, she was a slave, and she was sending him off to a better life, whereas maybe with Han and Leia, it was, I don't know, like, were they having trouble with him? Like, he was a troubled, like they were having trouble raising him. And so they thought, send him to, or that, well, you're a Jedi, we're going to send you to this academy. And he felt like they abandoned him when maybe really they didn't. It'll be interesting to see how or if that plays out. Maybe it's too, it's not worth storyline wise to try to play out what had actually happened. But to get to the final sort of predictable reveal is when Rey finds Luke, and it seems heavily implied that she is his daughter. That was my interpretation of that. Is that what yours was too?
Yes, very much so. And it's funny that fanboys seem to be getting that right away, whereas when I was talking to some critic fans before it came out, and I couldn't talk to fanboys, they were saying that they thought it was going to be Rey was Kylo's sister. And I was like, what? That makes zero sense. I understand sort of a balance of the Force because they're siblings, but that makes no sense with what we were presented in the film, in that Rey shows a ability to manipulate machinery and work with machinery, which was Anakin's sort of ability. So yeah, direct descendant could still be granddaughter, sister of Kylo Ren, but just the illusion that she was dropped on a desert planet. Luke was dropped on a desert planet to protect them. Same exact scenario. The lightsaber called to Rey, and yes, it's Grandpa's, but it was also Luke's, and so it seemed like a straight line there. And the final one, I felt, was as we're on that final scene with Luke, a lot of people felt like he was in awe that the lightsaber was there, and I took it to mean he was in awe that he was staring at his daughter.
That's my interpretation too. And my brother, who's, as you know, a Star Wars fan, had the other one. He thought that it was that it's Han's daughter, that it's Kylo Ren's sister. And I think, and I asked him, well, why did you think that? He went back to that the Jedi aren't allowed to fall in love and to get married and have kids or whatever. And I was like, I guess. But at the same time, like, well, there is no Jedi Order anymore. So who's...
And Luke didn't necessarily learn those things because he
right.
got a very, very brief lesson from Obi-Wan, brief lesson from Yoda, and I'm sure they were covering more important things than, hey, dude, you're not allowed to love. That's just not something you do.
Right.
So I think there's more important things. But the one thing I say against that argument is when Rey was giving a hug to Leia the very first time she landed on that planet, the Resistance planet, there was no, oh my God, my daughter. It was more of, I felt, again, reading into it, I know something you don't know. I am very lovable embrace, but not mother-daughter.
On your aunt, yeah. Yeah, I kind of got that same sense too. I think the only other thing I could think of is in the books, weren't there twins? Didn't Han and Leia have twins?
And this is something I talked about in my review. I'm very confused. Like, I thought going in, I know what's canon now, and I know what's not canon. I'm fine. Except that I'm still jaded by, I know some of the things that happen. And it's not that I think those things are going to happen again. It's kind of like a preconceived notion of where this story's going to go. Yes, Han and Leia had twins, Jason and Jaina, and they had a third child named Anakin. Jason is the one who eventually the one who eventually goes evil and reforms the Empire. And then Luke has a child too with a woman by the name of Mara Jade, and his son is named Ben. So those things are awesome, but none of them exist. They're in the what do they call it? The Legends universe in Star Wars.
Interesting. Yeah. So I don't know if that factored into it as well, but I had the same interpretation that you did, that this was, and so did my kids, by the way, which is what I kind of want to get to next is, what were your kids' thoughts? I know that Sabrina loved Rey, thought that she was fantastic, really liked Finn, loved BB-8, of course. BB-8, so like that, Lucas, is how you get kids. Like, not Jar Jar Binks, like that's how it works. So she loved him before the movie even came out, loved Rey, and her only criticism of it, which I actually agree with, was that Captain Phasma was so peripheral. And I hope she's back because she seemed, I was intrigued by her. I thought, one, very interesting to have a female stormtrooper as, an authority figure, and to have that actress playing, she's so tall, and the cool silver armor, and she just had this presence that just seemed like, okay, she's cool. And then she really was kind of underutilized, and it just was. I just felt like it was a bit of a disappointment. So I liked that Sabrina thought that, you know, that was a bummer.
Kathleen Kennedy has come out and said that all the cast is returning, including Han, which is weird. So I don't know if that's flashbacks or whatever.
Probably flashbacks.
So, yeah, she, from what I understand, Captain Phasma will be back. I don't know if she'll still be with the First Order. I'm kind of hoping she goes a different route and is kind of pissed off that
bounty hunters. It maybe.
Yeah, that she may have been abandoned on planet or what have you and had to escape last second. So she goes the role of a bounty hunter. I think.
Yeah, she was in that trash compactor, I'm guessing. So maybe she got out somehow. But my son really enjoyed it, and he's been on a Star Wars kick. He's been playing the Force Unleashed on the Wii, like really old game that is not very good, but he loves it. And has been doing all kinds of lightsaber battles and the rest. But he really liked it. His main criticism was he was disappointed Boba Fett wasn't in it. So awesome. I was like, okay, I can see that. I got you. He's like, I thought they said that he survived the Sarlacc pit. So where is he? I was like, well maybe we'll see.
Did he notice when they landed on the planet to I don't remember the character's name. She's
the Yoda-like character. Yeah, the new Yoda, basically. Yeah. Goggles.
When they landed on that planet, they're walking in that building. There was a Mandalorian image up there.
Yeah, I pointed that out to him, you know, later, and he was not satisfied. He just was not satisfied with just that. And he knows like way more Star Wars than I do from. He's watched like all the Clone Wars seasons, and he reads the encyclopedias and things like that. So, and I don't know how much of it that he knows is canon, non-canon kind of stuff. You know, how much of it's still.
I'm assuming most of what he's able to get his hands on now will be canon. I mean, the only reason why I read what I read was because that was what was out, and that's what was there. They don't do that. That's not there anymore. So I'm assuming what he's reading is canon.
It could be, but he does like, I mean, he'll get on the computer and like he'll research stuff on the computer. So who knows what he's coming across and from what source. It could be from the comic books and stuff like that. Cause he'll do that. It's great. He knows more about Lord of the Rings than I do. It's just like, and he gets, when my Cade gets into something, he gets like tunnel vision obsessed with it. And it's like, okay, dude, like you roll with it, but you gotta love that enthusiasm. So they had a good time. My nephews seemed to really enjoy it, and they had a good time as well. And I thought the whole experience was great. Everybody in the theater was fantastic. No issues of people being rude or anything like that. So that was nice to see too. So how about your kids? How they like it?
When I took it, well, Madison hasn't seen it. She's 6, and I'm still iffy. I think the violence is not really shown, and I know we have the blood going across Finn's face at the beginning, but I think it's okay. I know it's PG-13, and I'm sure parents are going, "Oh my God, you can't let your almost 7-year-old daughter see this movie." But forget you. She's my daughter. I'm going to let her see Star Wars. I think the PG-13 associated with Revenge of the Sith is far worse, especially when Anakin comes out of the lava.
Yeah.
This one I'm not. I didn't really notice anything that was like, ooh, there's no way she can watch this. But that being said, James and his 4 friends loved it. I know James has seen all the movies. He's not a freak like I am. He's just seen them. He actually had a conversation with me about 3 years ago because I had posters in his room and my toys in his room. He's like, Daddy, I'm not that big a fan of Star Wars. So I toned it back. I was like, okay, dude, but getting ready for this, his birthday was on Tuesday, so he got a BB-8 little remote control dude, BB-8 pop vinyl, and he knew for his birthday that's what he was doing, and he was so stoked, so excited, and him and his buddies loved it. I don't think any of his friends had seen Star Wars. If they had, they hadn't seen like all 6 movies yet, so it was interesting to see their reaction. And they're all 9, 10 years old. So really, the movies hadn't been out. The movies came out, so they were not even born when the last movie came out. Right. So it's an interesting perspective to see. And then the dads, again, I wasn't sure what their level of Star Wars was. And it was more, well, I've seen one, to one of my good friends who was like, oh, yeah, I know everything. Basically, he knows everything I know, so it was cool. Everybody loved it. theater, like you said, was great. And this was, although I saw it Tuesday, this was my first experience seeing it with an audience that was likable versus the jerky critics. And it was, yeah, I'm opinionated, but they loved it. There was the clapping at the right appropriate moments, the gasps. I mean, it was phenomenal. And then seeing it again on Sunday with my wife, she really is, and I think you'll understand that she's better than me. She's a better person than me. Like, she was able to just go in, shed the critic at all, shed the fangirl at all, and just watch it with joy. And it was great for me to sit there next to her, because I'm sitting there, trying to look out the corner of my eye because I don't want to get away that something's happening. And with Han Solo, the moment Han Solo and Kylo were in the same room, she's like, no. And when Han's taking steps on the bridge, she's like, no. And that's where it was great, because I know a bunch of people, just jerks out there, were spoiling the movie and putting out scenes that Han had died. And it wasn't that it was a huge twist like M. Night Shyamalan, which really you saw it come from a mile away, but at the same time, if you went in knowing that was going to happen, it really was a letdown. But just the tension of my wife just sitting there, she epitomized it. No. And then when it happened, she audibly, no! And you're like, yeah, it had to happen. That's awesome. Sad as all get out, but it was perfect storytelling.
Yeah, I mean, it's like I said, it's what you expected, and it's how the story had to go. If it doesn't go that way, then people are trying to be clever, or it's just not the way that it should be. So it's all right that it's predictable, in my opinion. And then as far as the critics, you call them the jerky critics. I haven't read a whole lot, like some headlines here and there, but most of what I've seen is they've praised it for being fun, which and for rewarding Star Wars fans, which is what the purpose of the film is. I don't think it needs to be. I don't think anyone should go into this movie thinking that it's some great American film. It's fun. It's a lot of fun. It's got a great story. It's got interesting characters. It's got a place it's gonna go, and it's just really enjoyable. And so go have some popcorn and enjoy it. I think that's the way to look at it. You talked about the Chewbacca and Han Solo relationship, and I just saw something on Facebook where someone was making the same comparison between Finn and Poe and saying, is that going to be a homosexual relationship budding there? And I don't know what it is. Like, I mean, me, that I have no judgments about people's sexuality at all, and I think that's fine if you want to do that in storytelling. But I feel like sometimes we as critics or commentators or something, we try to force something into having some kind of a message or a meaning or something. And I felt like that's what that in particular was doing. I didn't pick up that vibe at all, that Finn and
that's Poe, in my opinion, because there's so many references to Finn being interested in Rey.
That's what I thought. Like, he's obviously got a thing for her.
Boyfriend at home, and it's like a joke, but at the same time, it's like he's clearly searching for like he's interested. So
and he's lying to her because he wants to impress her, and he feels ashamed of who he is and where he comes from. I totally agree with that. And so I just was like, why are you trying? Why can't they? And then when you mentioned the Han and Chewbacca thing, it's like, why can't there be two male characters who are affectionate towards one another and who really love one another, and it not be homosexual? That's what I think that the question should be raised with characters like those two pairings of characters. Is why is it that in our society showing affection and loving another male has to be sexualized? Why does that have to be? Why can that only come from homosexual men? Why can't heterosexual men express compassion and love for each other? That great scene in Return of the Jedi when Chewbacca, you have the Han Solo's been freed from the carbonite, and Chewbacca's, caressing his head. That's a fantastic moment. And and why does that have to be why can't that be something that's okay and acceptable? I think that's the more interesting discussion to have when it comes to these characters, is why can't they be bros? You know, why is that? Why do we have to make it into something else? Yeah. Which you know, like I said, I've got nothing wrong with that, but I didn't pick it up either at all. Nothing in there said that to me.
One of the things that still, after 3 viewings, it still bothers me, and somebody posted on my YouTube video that, well, you don't need to know. It's like, no, but the use of Max von Sydow in the beginning of this movie, to me, was epic, because Max von Sydow, and maybe that's just it, I'm too much of a film nerd, but Max von Sydow was a phenomenal actor, just been around forever. He was in The Exorcist, the original Exorcist, not to mention the fact that he was in some very old Swedish movies where he got his start. And it just blows my mind that nobody really considers it a travesty that he died right away. So I'm like, well, who is this character he played? It must be of utmost importance, because this is a renowned actor. I want to know more. And several people are like, you don't need to know more. He just did his job. And I'm like, no, I want to know more. Who is Lor Santeca? And I looked it up, and it's sort of a leader of a religious sect that worship the Jedi, so to speak. That's the best way I can describe it. And that's why he was sort of entrusted with this key to the map. So I'm like, okay, I get that. That's cool. I just wish he had more screen time, just because, I mean, he's an amazing actor.
Now, is he still living, or did he recently pass away?
No, Max von Sydow is still living.
He's still, all right, good, fantastic.
He's cast in the next season of Game of Thrones.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
No, I definitely, when he came on screen, I'm like, oh, it's that guy, you know. And I didn't place the name yet, but when you mentioned von Sydow, I was like, oh yeah, that guy. And I agree. I thought his performance was great, and his character was very interesting. Hopefully we'll see a little bit more, of that. Now, didn't his character died though, right, in the beginning? Because and that's a bummer. But
I think that might have been why they cast him. So now they can show. I'm hoping there's going to be some movies coming in between the gap of Return of the Jedi and The Force Awakens, but not necessarily with the main cast that we know and love, that will tell us some of those stories, and maybe we'll see a much younger person cast in this role, similar to Alec Guinness's Obi-Wan Kenobi and Ewan McGregor's Obi-Wan Kenobi, and we'll just see more of him in action. That would be cool to me.
Yeah, that might be kind of cool. Might be
very cool. The other thing I wanted to talk about was there's a great article on Birth, Death Movies. I believe that's the website. It's associated with the Alamo Drafthouse. And they really outlined what happened between Jedi and Force Awakens and why the Empire isn't there. And it was, and I didn't know this, and I'm sure if you know the extended universe, prayers, but for the most part, the Rebel Alliance won, and they set up the New Republic. The New Republic is on that planet, which I thought was Coruscant, the one that got blown up, the whole solar system. That's not Coruscant. They moved the New Republic off of Coruscant because of all the bad things associated with the Empire. I don't remember the name of that planet that got blown up, but that is not Coruscant, which I'm happy. So the New Republic is established. They start feeling remnants of the Empire, which is reorganized into the New Order. The resistance started because the New Republic didn't necessarily feel like this was going to be a threat, but certain people, obviously Akbar and Leia, felt like this was going to be a threat. So the First Order became a threat to them. They formed the resistance, even though they are in line with the New Republic, because they referenced a couple times the fleet with the New Republic. Well, the fleet can't help us now because the solar system blew up. So clearly there's a military associated with the New Republic, but the resistance, I feel, from reading it, had to set up themselves sort of like a CIA or special ops so that they can take on this First Order, which leads me to believe, well, how big is the First Order? Are they not that big? Were they just on this Death Star planet and now they're gone? Which obviously is not the case. Or is there something that the New Republic doesn't know and they're somewhere else back bigger? Because they also reference clones. So do they have clones, a clone portion of the army waiting to join the First Order or actually fight for the First Order? And I'm not sure. And these are all things I can't wait to get answered. But I really like that article because it showed a little more insight into why there's this new empire and why there's a resistance and what's the New Republic about.
Yeah, I think that's pretty interesting too. And I was, when I watch it a second time, I'll look, for more of those things, because the first time I watched it, I just was kind of like, I wasn't really trying to figure out, okay, where did the New Order come from and all that jazz. But they certainly seem to portray the New Order much more like in a much more fascist way than I mean, the Empire has always been associated with, fascism and, going back to World War II and that kind of stuff. And I thought they did, the same here, even more so. I mean, with it seemed like there was this idea of elitism, even more so, like we're like a master race kind of a mantra that was an undercurrent of it. And you had the social programming of these like kids that and babies that they basically stole away, which I thought was much more devious than clones, than creating clones, which I thought was really interesting to actually like psychologically program these people. And it made me wonder if Finn, momentarily it made me wonder if Finn had the Force too, because he was able to break that psychological programming. But maybe not. Maybe he's just a good person, and that was how he could do it. Or, I mean, everybody has access to the Force in some kind of way, and so he just might have a little bit more. But it made me wonder if he was gonna, become a Jedi himself as well. And he just looked so cool with a lightsaber too. Was the other thing. I just kind of liked that he had one, and I personally would love to see him go down that path. But I don't think that that's where they're going. I think he's the sort of new, Han Solo-ish type of character, where he's going to be the blaster guy and the guy with the witty dialogue and stuff like that. So yeah, I think just overall very rewarding. I can't wait to take Megan to go and see it. We've just both been so incredibly busy. But now that Christmas break is coming, we're both going to make sure that we take some time to go and see the movie and see what she thinks of it, because she knows Star Wars but isn't a huge fan, but she does like the film. She does know that the prequels are no good and that the originals are where it's at. So I think she's going to enjoy it, and then she'll be able to weigh. I always like to have her weigh in on stuff, because a lot of times she'll say something that I'm like, oh yeah, no, now I know there was something there that was bothering me, or something there that I kind of liked, and I just couldn't put my finger on it, and she's able to point that out. So I'm looking forward to that too.
One of the cool things I love about this movie, and we'll wrap up here, is that you and I are the same age. We are a little older, just so I can put that in there, but we're the same age. And we grew up with the original Star Wars, about the same age, about 6 or 7 when Return of the Jedi came out. And that's the one I remember in the theaters. I don't remember the other ones.
Yeah, me too.
I don't remember the first time I saw Star Wars. I don't know. It's always been in my life, just because it was released in May and I was born in June, so it's literally always been there. So when the prequels came out, that was really the first set of movies where I saw in the theater, and everybody knew where the story was going. You just had to, because it's leading into the original trilogy. Yeah. No doubt about it. We didn't know certain aspects of it, but we knew where it was going. So everybody that is our age and a little bit older, and definitely everybody younger, this is the first experience they have with Star Wars where we have no idea where these movies are going. If you saw the originals I would assume 10 or older, you got that experience. You knew, man, I don't know where these movies are going. These are cool. But for us, this is the first time, and it's a weird sensation. It just hit me when I was trying to piece together the extended universe and what they might be using. It's like, I have no idea. And to me, that's an interesting, cool, somewhat scary thought about a universe that I used to know everything about. So it's very, very cool.
Yeah, that's a good point. I hadn't thought about it in that way, but that, yeah, you and I, while we've grown up with the originals, they were all released by the time we were old enough to really be watching them, and so we've always known them. We weren't old enough to have Vader being Luke's father be a reveal.
No,
that
exactly.
we just always knew that. We knew that even when we were watching A New Hope, because we watched them all consecutively. So yeah, good point. Whereas with this one, we don't, but I have a feeling that it'll be a lot like this first one, where there will be, some surprises and things, but there'll be ones that you kind of see coming and that hopefully you find just as rewarding as this first film, where you're like, yep, that's how that should be. That's exactly how that should be.
I agree. And I read a rumor today that J.J. Abrams has read the script for the second Star Wars. And I forgot his buddy's name. He was in the movie. His good friend, who he's been friends with since childhood. Let me look it up real quick. He was Matt Parkman in Heroes. So when I saw him, I'm like, oh my God, what's he doing?
Yeah, I wondered why he was in there.
Ray Grunberg, he was Snap Wexley, one of the pilots. He came out and he said, I've never seen JJ this disappointed. And he was disappointed because he had already turned down directing the second movie. Rian Johnson's directing it. So he was disappointed he turned it down because the script was that good.
That's encouraging, because as we know, Empire's the best of the original trilogies. That middle storyline that I love Empire. That's my favorite. So I'm looking forward to this Empire of the trilogy here. So cool. Well, I'm so glad we were able to get this in and squeeze one in before Christmas. So happy holidays to everyone out there in nerddom. Merry Christmas, Jimmy. And I hope you celebrate with your family. Happy Life Day, I guess, too, we can say, since this is the holiday special.
If you can find a copy of it, it's not easy. I think it actually is on YouTube, but if you can find a copy of the holiday special Star Wars, watch it and drink. That's all I can say.
Yeah. No, good call. Good call on that. What a great stocking stuffer that would be, is if you could get a copy of that bad boy. But Merry Christmas, everybody. Happy holidays to you out there. And we'll see you on the other side. Probably 2016 before we're able to come back around again.
I'll use a dad joke. See you next year.
That's right. Have a good one, buddy.
Have a nerdy holiday.